Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth installment of the Sofa Series Artist Spotlight. Today, with me is Diana Benavidez, the Piñatist extraordinaire. She's amazing and wonderful. And so, Diana, get us started. Tell us, well, we already know your name, so you don't have to do that again. Who you are, where are you from, how did you come to San Diego? Have you been here a while? And, get the ball rolling. Let's go.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I am a binational transborder visual artist from the San Diego Tijuana border region. I grew up my whole life in both cities, San Diego and Tijuana, simultaneously. So I've actually been my whole life in this area. I've never moved, which is kind of odd, but at the same time, it's kind of chaotic. It's chaotic enough to keep everything so interesting. My primary method of art making is piñatas, which has been, my practice for the past 5 years, and it's been really a great journey to kind of bridge, my identity because, growing up in Tijuana and San Diego is kind of a crazy thing, if you think about it, stop and think about it. So for me, I really had a lot of issues with like figuring out who I was and where I belonged. And till this day, I mean, I'm 30 years old and I'm still trying to figure out that.
Same.
But I think that piñatas have helped me a lot in communicating these questions with ridiculous answers and like
Or
maybe
no answers at all, right?
or
Like,
no answers at all.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's really I find it very interesting how up until today we're so fixated in labeling something, having like a straight trajectory and a solid identity, which has caused me a lot of issues trying to figure out who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and do I belong here? Do I belong there? And to me, the answer has always been like, I don't know. Like, I really don't feel like I'm Mexican enough to say I'm from Mexico. I don't feel I'm American or from the United States
Mm-hmm.
enough. I still have an accent, and I probably keep it because I feel that it does symbolize that, you know, um, cross boarding.
That can be like a really, really powerful thing too, like I think to like do you know who like Kathleen Hanna from
Yeah,
yeah, right?
yeah,
Like she's
of course.
she's in her she did this amazing documentary about her rise to fame as a
What was
bikini
that documentary called?
I don't even remember, but it's something
I
about her
saw it.
voice. Like she had lost her
Yeah,
voice somewhere in the
yeah.
way, but she talked very specifically about like about wanting to keep this like Valley Girl accent because people assumed she was stupid and she was out to prove that she wasn't, regardless of how she talked, right? And so it was like this protest move to talk like, I don't know, whatever, and have really important and interesting things to say. So it can be like, I don't know, it's such a good, a strong move, I think, a strong choice to say, no, this is how I talk, deal with it.
And it also takes a lot of physical energy to try to sound like, for me, like I sound Mexican perfectly when I speak in Spanish, but when I speak in English, when I was a little girl and up to like high school, I tried so hard to sound so fluid, so like, like I belonged here, that it was so like energy draining,
Yeah.
at some point. So at some point, I started feeling like, you know what? I'm just gonna let it go. And sometimes I feel more fluid than other
Mm.
days, and some other days I'm like, I don't care. It's like wearing your pajamas on like a Sunday, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like
It's like
whatever.
it's Sunday.
Doesn't matter. Who cares? Well, how did you come to decide on the piñata, right? It is like it's such a symbol for childhood, right? For at a a little birthday party, and you give your kid a Dora the Explorer to like curb stomp until candy pops out of her face, you know? Like, so how did you at least that's the white parties.
Oh
You-
yeah, yeah, all parties.
So like why did you decide on the piñata?
Yeah. Well, I think that well, first it took a little. I mean, it comes from different spots in my life. My first job, I was 12 years old. I lived in Tijuana with both my parents in that time, and in the same block, we had a Mexican candy store which we
Hmm.
call dulceria,
Yeah.
and they sell candies and piñatas,
Hmm.
And so the owner was a friend of the family, and it was very common for young kids to like do those sorts of jobs.
Hmm.
And so the owner was like, "Hey, I was telling my mom, do you think that Diana would like to help me around the store? She can learn a couple of things here and there." And my mom was like, "Yeah, I think that'd be great." And I started doing like a lot of mundane things,
Yeah.
like cleaning and restocking. And later, I started helping in the register. But then, like the very like most important thing came, which was, I mean, this is more important than handling money for me. It just came in like in the process of right. I got access to money first, then access to the piñatas later. But they made piñatas in the back room of the dulceria, and so one day, she's like, "Hey, Diana, I want to come show you how we make piñatas." And I was like, "Okay, cool." It was like this really dark uh, part of the store where they had like, I don't know if you've seen Coma, that movie.
No.
No, it's an interesting movie from I would say late 70s, early
Uh-huh.
80s. Uh, Richard Gere, I think he was the main person there, or Michael Douglas actually. Anyhow, they have this scene where you see a lot of corpses hanging,
Uh-huh.
like in a butchery,
Uh-huh.
and that's how it looked like behind the dulceria. It's like all these little bodies, like newspaper bodies, hanging from like this bar, and they're all waiting for the moment to get processed, right? To get
Yeah.
their skin done and like their outfit and their
So
face.
so
But it was
metal.
basically,
That's so
but it
good.
was, but it was the same shape. It was the same shape, but
Yeah.
one was Spider-Man, one was Snow White, same shape. And so, she was like, "Yeah, this is the process." She kind of walked me through what piñata they were working on. And I think that was the first time when I had like this feeling of having a lot of questions and not a lot of like answers that made sense. Like,
Hmm.
okay, you're building these things that you're putting all this material, all this time, all this effort for the purpose of destroying them makes no sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
as a child, I was like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then later on, I unfortunately, I was a kid, so I was stealing candy. So I think at some point they realized that I was stealing candy, so they let me go in a very nice way.
Oh, you got fired.
I got fired from my first job. It was a nice job, It's the candy was great, and until like I moved, I had a great relationship with the owner. I think she knew I was a kid in a candy store
I
at the
mean,
end of
come on. Yeah.
the day. And so later on, like you know, well, I mean, not really later on, but I feel like part of the landscape while growing up, crossing into San Diego, and the border crossing,
Hmm.
um, piñatas and a lot of objects that were being sold while we were making line were very interesting to me. They're kitsch art, rightful, the purpose wasn't unsure. Like piggy banks, the same thing, right? You buy a piggy bank, you fill it up, and then you break it. Those sorts of things were very present in my childhood and growing up. So I think that when I, started, to explore art, and I was in at UCSD doing my undergrad, I think I started to pull things from my childhood and things that kind of stood up for me. And yeah, I mean, one day I was still living with my mom. I crashed her car in the summer, and I spent my whole summer job paying for the repairs of the job. And I was so bored. I mean, I was in my early 20s. I was home. I wasn't going out. I wasn't, spending any of the money that I made because I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
And so all the money was going to the repairs.
Yeah.
And so, one day I started building a piñata, and out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, I just I'm going to build this piñata.
Just a way to fill time, right? Just like a bored 20-something.
There's this impulse. Yeah. And I know it sounds like bullshit, but there's sometimes I do just things out of impulse.
Yeah.
It's just like, I am going to build a piñata. And I uploaded the piñata on my Instagram, and everyone loved it. And I was like, ooh.
What shape did you choose? What was it? Was it like the traditional like ball with the points, or what shape did you do?
It was a toilet paper roll, actually.
How perfect and poetic for this really shitty time. You're so forward thinking, Deanna. Like, you don't know it.
And everyone loved it. And I was like, you know what? These are so easy to make. I can grab a lot of the material from the dumpster because it's a lot of cardboard. And at that time, I worked at a dollar store, so I could buy like tissue paper, and then the owners would like not charge me tax when I buy stuff from them.
Awesome.
So I started just I was like, oh, I'm gonna build one every day, and would build it and upload it on Instagram, and everyone was like, I love it. And suddenly, in 2 weeks, I built 12. And then my mom's like, what are you gonna do with all these things? I was like, I don't know, Mom, but maybe one day I'll have a chance to have an art show, and then I will have a body of work ready for them.
You were not already thinking about that as an art show, really?
No, yeah, because because at UCSD as an undergrad, you get a chance to showcase in this this gallery we have. It's a beautiful gallery. It's just kind of very hidden.
That's the one, the UAG. It's up by the Solis Hall up that one up there.
Well, the UAG is actually more visible than this one. This one's tucked in where the metal shop and the wood shop is, for undergrads.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It's super hidden, but they gave undergrads an opportunity to showcase work once a week. So every week they had new artists.
That's great.
That were undergrads.
Yeah.
And I never had any body of work. I mean, I was not a painter because I don't paint for shit, and I never considered myself an artist because I was so scared of machinery that it was if I wanted to make something out of metal, I had to use this very scary tool, and I always felt it's gonna explode in my face, and then so whatever. I was I'm ready, and it was my sophomore year, something like that. So
what kinds of objects did you show? What were they?
So it's really interesting because that body of work had a lot of items that reminded me from, or I reflected upon living in Chula Vista. Mm. So I grew up partially. I was living here in Chula Vista with my grandfather during the weekdays, and on the weekends I would go with my parents in Tijuana. So my grandfather was a hoarder, so he had a lot of things at his place. Anything he saw in the trash can that would be helpful or in the future, he would take it back to the apartment. So it was like full of shit. Good shit. I mean, like just random shit, you know?
Just shit.
Just shit. And he always told me, you know, you can play with this. You can make these things. You can make a house out of this and this and that. So my imagination was like very active the whole time I was living with him. Like bottles of pills, like those oranges.
Yeah.
Orange ones.
Yeah.
Like, he had like boxes of those. And so I made like little cities from those and I had little cars, and so there's a lot of random stuff in that first body of work, which I entitled Raised in Chula Juana, because I was raised in Chula Vista and Tijuana. And a lot of the items kind of came from my grandfather's house, you know, a lot of analog stuff like VHS. Because I was away on the weekends, he would record cartoons on VHS, so I would watch during the weekdays.
Oh my god.
Bunny, Looney Tunes, those kinds of things.
Wow.
Cassettes. He used to listen to an hour of tango around 3 p.m. on Saturdays, so he recorded tango on these cassettes, and a lot of those type of analog things. And then, I mean, it's really random stuff.
Yeah.
Really random stuff, but somehow they were rooted from growing up in Chula Vista. That's how kind of like, that's how I just went, wow, piñatas kind of like really represent me, because it's like a way of attaching this part of my heritage and culture, but at the same time, there's like capitalism and accessibility to items that I probably wouldn't have had if I lived with my parents in Tijuana full time, you know. So I don't know.
Do you keep them? Do you actually destroy them?
No, I mean, I recently started to manipulate them. It's interesting because people always ask me, do you make, you know, custom made piñatas? I'm like, no. Like, it's like, no. I have piñatas everywhere in San Diego.
Yeah.
Everywhere where my friends have garages and they have a space, I have piñatas. And it's interesting because I've been saving piñatas that are 5 years old, and
are they like
intact?
Totally? Really? They're not like deteriorating and like the paper is getting all like wacky?
And I mean, like, they're intact. And I've showcased them, you know, throughout this 5 years in different places. And, you know, I think that that's part of like the most satisfactory thing about making piñatas is that I see it as an act of resistance, because I am making this object that through its nature is ephemeral, but I provide them a longer life because I'm not breaking them. But it's also an act of disobedience because I'm breaking this like social cultural norm that they're supposed to be broken, you know? So at the same time, I feel like, yeah, I'm making like rebellious piñatas. They're not going to be broken. Everyone wants to break them, and people want to buy them, but I'm not selling them, you know? So they can't break them. So
good.
they're alive.
They're alive in their little dungeons. Trapped in a garage somewhere all around San Diego.
I mean, there's people who have my piñatas. There's a couple of people who have bought piñatas from me, but they really had to convince me, because I was like, there's no amount of money that would like, that's the nasty thing that I see from art making is like, like I can't sell them because there's no amount of money that can equal the energy, the thought, the, you know, it's just, I do this because it grows from me, you know, and that's why I have like jobs, because, you know, like I don't want my artwork to be kind of like manipulated by that. And, you know, I guess I'm like happy with like little bit of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't live in a luxurious home and I don't have luxurious car or all these things, but I'm like makes me happy just
Yeah.
to have the minimal things.
Yeah.
You know?
But so you're also talking about this, like this, just that you make them to keep them, to preserve them, right? As the act of resistance, but you also dive like right into subject matter as like the piñatas are symbols of protest, or a way to kind of like shed light on cultural things that are in throughout society that are pretty just inhumane or grotesque, or all of these sorts of things. So can you talk about how you kind of ventured into that kind of piñata making? Like at first, maybe it started as just, oh, I'm going to make a collection of things around for my grandpa, right? But how did it turn into an actual, like a real, like active protest?
Yeah, I think that it was around 2000, I think it was 2016. And I know this because every year I make a body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's all related. So it's a year of reflections.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I can name like 2015, Racing to La Juana. Now 2016 was a body of work that I called Asking for It. And it was a collection of objects that had a very peculiar relationship with a body of a cis genre woman.
Mm-hmm.
These things were like items that are designed to be minimized or invisible, like tampons, pregnancy tests, the birth control,
That one is my
Plan
favorite.
B,
It's so good.
racers, um, and even like I did a macer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Does that just have a relationship with a female body? If you
Mm-hmm.
feel like your body is gonna be attacked, you know, like, which
Yeah,
I carried that thing for like up until like I graduated from
I
UCSB
know.
because they took it from me. I went to my graduation and at the doors of the stadium they're like, you can come in with this. I was like, I've been like holding on to this for like a while. Like this is like my protection. So they're like, I'm sorry. I was like, shit. So I
That
left.
was it. That was it. They had it taken away, and that's
they,
it. No
they took
more.
it away, but at the same time, it kind of liberated me
Mm-hmm.
because I was holding on to that for a while after I was attacked on the street
Mm-hmm.
in broad daylight
Oh my
on
God.
my way to grab my bus to UCSD in downtown. This man just kind of like I was walking to the bus stop and very tall man suddenly like turns to me and bear hugs me in front of people who are waiting for the bus. He grabs my butt like this and like lifts me. And this whole time, like I'm
Yeah.
trying to like escape and yelling and ah.
Yeah.
He finally lets me go. He's laughing. He's smiling. And I was like, "You fucking asshole!" I'm just kind of like going crazy. And I like I'm pointing at him to the people who are waiting for the bus stop, but nobody was doing anything. So when the bus arrived, I told the bus driver, I was like, this man just groped me and he just attacked me. He just like, oh my God, I feel so horrible. I was crying and we stood in the, like, I think he radioed like the MTS police and we were stopped in the bus stop for a while. And this whole time, this guy is like leaning against the bench and smiling at me and laughing at me. And so I take a photo of him, and like finally the bus drives off. I don't know what happened. I don't know. We get to UCSD, blah blah blah. I'm done with my class. Go back to downtown, actually Old Town, and then I call my friend. I was like, you know what? I was attacked. I need to go to the police station. Can you pick me up in Old Town? She's like, okay. she drives me to the police station, and the police officer's like, okay, well, I will definitely make sure this makes it to a detective. But yeah, I mean, like, without DNA, there's like not a lot that we can do. I was like, well, I have a photo of the guy. And he's like, okay, email it to me. And I email it. Then this female detective calls me, and she's like, well, again, I can't really do much if there isn't a DNA, blah, blah, blah. I was like, did the police officer send you the photo? No. Okay, let me email it to you. Oh, yeah, I actually know this guy. Unfortunately, he's been like a jailbird since he's been like in his teenage years. He hasn't done anything more than a misdemeanor. I mean, we can go to court, but it's gonna be basically his word against yours or your word against his, because there's no DNA and there's no like blah blah blah. You want to move forward with this? And I was like, you know what? I have a lot of things to do, and if you can't help me, I can't. Like, and so I actually started building this body of work from this moment where I was attacked. And the first piece that I made was actually a pepper spray, which is pretty big. And from there, I just kind of started to amplify small objects that somehow, like I said, have a very close relationship to our bodies as cisgender women. And so that became for me a move of protest and manifestation against all these injustices that are happening, because yeah, we have birth control, but then there's these assholes who say, oh, you're killing your babies, or you don't have rights to your body. Right. Or like I did a razor, shaving razor, and I was like, some people say like, oh, you should be shaving because you're a woman. And so all these little objects that I made that had that impact.
I mean, the mace itself is like I think it's such an important symbol too, because I know so many of my female friends who like that's a gift that is given to the girl as she goes off to college from her father, like it's this thing being presented to you. Now you're an adult. You're going to have to defend yourself from potential attack, like this is like this gesture. Luckily, like that never happened to me, but it's like I know so many girls, it's like that it's kind of a proud moment that my baby's all grown up, here's your first mace. Which is like so fucked. It is so weird and awful, and you're right, it is this like this symbol of being a female in public, and it is something that we need to keep hidden, and it's something to be ashamed of and hold it close beside you so that to ward off any potential attackers. I think it's a powerful move, I think, for you. It's really nice. But then you go into further border relations, right? So the amazing border cars, little RC remote controls. I wish you had like a video of them, like me,
I have some. I took only one to Tijuana, and that was like last year when I took a vacation to Tijuana for a week. I didn't have money to go anywhere, so I was like, I'm just gonna go to fucking Tijuana for a week. And it was like amazing. It was amazing. I got to see all my friends. I got to do whatever the fuck I wanted. I felt so free. I joked but one of the things was that I built this cart was a taxi that was very common to take back in Tijuana. It's like a station wagon. Back when we used like station wagons. I love sitting in the back and seeing like the person driving behind me. But I let my friends drive it, and Revolucion and other parts of Tijuana, which was really amazing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I want to be able to keep close to my heart, that identity of Tijuana, but also like bring again like this gesture of like I'm making a piñata that's not really breakable. Like no one's gonna want to break this fucking card.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that the idea of introducing materials or things that make the piñata transcend
Mm-hmm.
their purpose to be broken is one of the things that I try to accomplish
Mm-hmm.
every time I make a piñata. And definitely with the cars, with the drone, I am able to tell the stories from the border because
Mm-hmm.
they're beautiful stories. They're part of our region, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not, and you can invisible.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I mean, when I moved here back in 2009, and I was raised in a border town in Texas, and
Oh,
in yeah, in the Rio Grande Valley, and so growing up there, the Mexican presence is it's everywhere. You cannot deny it.
yeah,
It is like, you know, as Mexican as it can get.
yeah,
But here, like I had to look for it. You know, I live in San Diego. I'm just like, I don't understand. Okay, so we've got some really good tacos, fine. But like, but it just doesn't feel I forget sometimes that that Mexico is like right there, you know, right there. It seems to be like San Diego's best kept secret, you know, and that it wants to, I don't know, maybe culturally it sort of is not really still yet embracing that there is this entire binational community that thrives on both sides, and that's just part of being a border town, and that should be celebrated, it should be welcomed, it should, for what I think anyway.
yeah.
So I think it's just fascinating to think of San Diego as a border town without really, I don't really see much of the influence unless you go south of downtown, and then it's like, oh, okay, here we are. But it doesn't like creep up, you know?
I think it has to do a lot with the stigma of being from Tijuana. Tijuana is one of the major cities in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and the biggest border crossing in the world. So, I mean, as a child, I was always told never to say I was from Tijuana or never to say I lived in Tijuana. My mom like trained me, and it's a horrible word to say train,
Well,
but she like
yeah.
coached me or told me to never say I was from Tijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up like feeling like it was a dirty word to
Mm.
say I'm from Tijuana. I think that's slowly like coming out of the shadows. But it also has to do with like the economy here in San Diego. I mean, a lot of people who are living in San Diego are not from San Diego; they're from other parts. We
Mm-hmm.
have like, the medical business going on and the technical IT stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that um unfortunately, a lot of Mexicans from Tijuana are living in the shadows because, for the most part, they are catering to the higher, and higher in the chain people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, they love Mexico when it's Chicano party.
Sure.
They can see all this like Chicano culture things. But
Yeah.
I also think that people from Tijuana are very comfortable with like doing Mexican things in their place.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't feel comfortable like being who they are here. Like for an example, I have a friend who works at Ross in San Isidro, and he tells me, yeah, I don't know how to I don't feel like I can be funny in English.
Oh, wow.
And he's a funny person. Like he's one of the most funniest person I know. And it's like, yeah, I don't feel like I can be like, and it probably has to do with his retail job that he's trained to be like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we are kind of taught to put this like mask over and like
Mm.
kind of hide this like identity, which is one of the reasons why like I feel so passionate about bringing like piñatas into this like scenario and also making them like, yeah, in a way it's an exotic object, but you can't break
You can't.
it.
Don't touch. Well, let's talk. We got to talk about that rosary,
Oh,
girl. Girl, it is so good, so good. It's and so is this the first time you had done like sound as part of your as
yeah,
part of integrated into the piñata? Yeah.
yeah. It was an amazing piece. I'm still reflecting on the piece because that's the beautiful thing about piñatas, that you amplify an object
Mm-hmm.
that you think you know. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I thought I knew a rosary. I was raised Catholic. I didn't know it had 63 beads until I had to replicate a rosary, and I was stuck making these 63 beads, which became very emotional and physically, um, you know, it just like it took a lot of energy from me. So that's like I said, that's a beautiful part about piñatas. You amplify these tiny objects for the most part, and you bring them to the reality of like, yeah, it's like a rosary is 63 beads. Here you go.
Here it is. All 25 feet of it. It's
25 feet of
so
it.
massive.
And I really wanted to make a tribute to, we've been seeing a lot of. It's interesting because March 8th, we celebrate. Well, March 7th is Women's Day,
Mm-hmm.
but March 8th in Latin America, we've been going out to march and to protest and to make all these chaos in the streets recently, because
Mm-hmm.
it's been somewhat peaceful in the past. But March 8th has become this very iconic moment where women are just like, I'm tired of this shit. I'm gonna fucking tear it all apart.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make kind of a I don't know if I wanted to say a monument, but like, reflect on that. As a woman, Catholic woman, you're told, well, you have to keep your virginity, you have to, if you got raped is because you asked for it. And you can pray to God and have a strong faith, but that's not going to help you not get raped in the streets of Latin America. And that's not going to help you not get victimized or attacked in any way. So for me was not only building a rosary that became kind of a penance, like a penance
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
for me, but it also became, while I was writing these prayers, it was like kind of reflecting on the actual prayers
Mm-hmm.
that are done in Catholicism, and I'm like, you guys are not considering women at all. Like, we're not being considered at all, and it's so unfair. And there's so many women who are praying to God when they leave their home to go to work and hoping and praying that they come back safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the rosary was a beautiful, which I mean, it's shitty to say I thought it was beautiful, but for me, it was a beautiful way to kind of commemorate that. And also, I mean,
I don't think it's shitty for you to say that. I think
well, I mean, I don't want
it's
to
like
seem
it's
egocentrical,
no.
But for me, it meant a lot.
It can mean a lot. It should mean a lot to you. I'm glad it does. But like the added symbol of like of the rosary beads itself, right? Like that is like a stand-in for your communication to God, but also a prayer to the Virgin, right? It's to her, to
Yeah,
Mary. That is this
yeah.
like this symbol of female perfection that is like impossible. Like come on, you know? So that yeah, these added layers are really really good. So can you talk about those the prayers themselves? Like what which prayers did you pull from Catholicism? Which did you make of your own, and how did you rework them?
Mm. I don't know. It was a strange thing because they all came out the same day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how many prayers there were. I mean, probably 50.
63? No.
And they weren't 53 because I didn't have enough time. Well, because, that rosary took about 80 hours to produce.
Oh my God.
80 hours,
Amazing.
10 days, 8-hour shifts to produce. So the prayers were like, I don't want to say they were an afterthought because they weren't. They were meant to like be done simultaneously, but they didn't come like until like the whole thing was done.
Hmm.
And Hail Marys, I use the Hail Mary for everything basically,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of reproduce my own prayers, you know. Um, the I don't know them in English, but the one you pray to the Father,
Mm-hmm.
the Holy Trinity. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly, the problem is that I don't know them in English, so
Let's
it's like,
say it in Spanish.
yeah, like Padre Nuestro is
Mm-hmm.
like a big one. Ave Maria is what I use, which is the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't use the Guardian Angel prayer, which is odd, and I feel like I should have used it because that's the prayer that I don't feel like I am a devoted Catholic, and if anything, I'm always fighting against these traditions and these
Mm-hmm.
superstitions. But I feel like in my worst, like in the moments where I felt the most scared, walking down a dark street,
Yeah.
I prayed to the guardian angel. Maybe I should have included that one, but it's interesting because I remember one time I was probably a teenager, around 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a punk rock show in Tijuana. Around that time, we had to take public transportation, and somehow like we ran out of money. We spent it all.
It happens. I
And
don't know
so
how that happened.
my friend was like, well, I guess we're gonna have to sleep under a car.
Ah, no.
And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't have a cell phone back then.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So we slept under a car for a couple of hours till like 6 a.m. when light came out. And I swear I was like, oh, guardian angel, please. And like this punk rock kid with like full cactus. I'm like, please, guardian angel. And it's like, it was so silly and so funny because it's a thing that I'm constantly fighting. Like every time I leave my house, I try not to cross myself because I'm like, this is fucking stupid. This is like, it's like constant battle of like, my mom taught me to do this, and she told me this like, it's kind of like a superstition. If you don't
Yeah.
touch yourself before leaving your house, you're gonna
Oh,
fucking.
yeah.
So it's like I have to stop myself sometimes from doing it. I'm like, dude, like you're not gonna die.
I like that the Catholic like
Like no,
no.
like ah.
It's possessed. No.
Yeah.
But it's in you though. It's like I mean, you're from birth. It's in your blood. This whole identity as the Catholic, right? And so this is your charge going forward as the adult human, separate from that. But I don't know. I think for me, in like my own religious upbringing, I kind of come around to it again and think like, okay, so it was as a kid it gave me a lot of anxiety because I could never feel like I was making all the wrong choices, and I was always I was always going to be in trouble, and I was always going to be going to hell, right? And then you sort of as the adult, I look back on it and say, okay, well, it's just part of what can connect me to my family and my history, and it's always going to be a part of me, forever. And so I don't know. I like that you were confronting this in this massive way. It's just overwhelming. It's so good, so good. Keep doing it. Do you think you'll make more in this kind of exploring this side of you? Is this year's body of work going to be about Catholicism?
Yeah, the plan was that to explore this throughout this year. I'm kind of changing, or maybe like adapting to the circumstances right now because
Mm-hmm.
cardboard. I'm kind of scared of like pulling it out from the trash
Yeah.
can now, and even if I build a body of work, like where am I gonna store it? I live in a tiny, 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 tiny studio apartment. So right now, I guess like I'm still consciously reflecting on that, but it's not gone, but it's probably not physically gonna be here
Mm-hmm.
this year. Probably the rosary was like, and it's awesome because it just kind of closed everything so beautifully that weekend. I
Mm-hmm.
feel for me. So I'm so thankful for that opportunity. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of that because it just kind of fulfilled that part. Where I was like, oh well, you know what? I have this dream. Why didn't you build it? Okay.
Why don't you? Why not? Why not? I don't know. Maybe now you could go small and make really micro piñatas.
That's horrible. It's a torture.
That's it. Yeah. Go back to making little pill bottle cities or something. I don't
No.
know. Nah, just snuggle your cat. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, Diana. It has been an immense pleasure to get a little peek into your world and your worldview. And yeah, I had a good time. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah!